Welcome to an episode of Field Phone Ops. Today we're going to talk about the RM-29 remote control unit. So sit back and I hope you learned something. In my previous video about the Gray 6 and Gray 39 remote control or control groups, I talked about an RC-261 being the control group they used in World War II. I was mistaken. I forgot to include this. This is an RM-29. This was developed during World War II to use with an EE-8 telephone to allow the EE-8 to be able to access a radio and remotely talk over it. This is the unit itself right here. It came in this case. This case is in incredible shape if it's the original case. Basically, the unit came with the case, a 4.5 volt square dry cell battery that was stored in the case, and it came with a separate microphone and a headset. Well, I went online looking, couldn't find one of those, and I ended up picking up. This is an H23 handset. This is of the correct period. It's all original. The handset's original, and the connectors are original. I had to replace the cabling on it because it was all dry and cracked, so that's what I'm going to use. But this is the unit right here. It comes in a steel case. These little screw pieces right here are used to remove the case and replace the batteries. There's no internal settings inside this to do. It's either put the batteries in, it's up and going. The binding posts are right here. This is where your field wire connected. You can connect it directly to a EE-8 telephone or to a switchboard such as a BD 71 or 72 were the ones they used at the time to make switchboard phone calls. It has a ringing bell inside it, and it has a hand crank on it, so you can send and receive phone calls as it would a field phone, except the only difference is you have to use a headset and microphone or a handset like this to operate it. The unit itself basically has wires right here. These are the interface wires to connect to the radio itself. This is a PL68. This is what was used to plug into the microphone on the radio, and this is the PL68, which was used to plug into the audio side. Basically, these are still in use today. This is a 1/4 inch mono stereo or mono audio jack plug. This part is missing right here. These cords were made this long because at the time the radios were not together. You might have a receiver that might sit separate from a transmitter, and that's why they give you these cords like this. So you had room, you could stretch them out and put them together. These are the original cables that were on it. I had put this heat shrink on here because it was cracking here real badly. I may have to go another step and actually take and replace these cables, or maybe I might just take and cut like 3 inches off and reinsert them into the things and tighten them back up. This is where, like I said, the plugs plugged in. You had for the handset, the headset plugged in there, and the microphone plugged in there. These are just jacks. I had to replace this one. This one at one time had been broken, and they put the original plug jack on this washer right here, but didn't put any backing on it, so it was just loose. Well, I was looking at it, and the actual jack was broken, so I replaced the jack and put a backing plate on here. So I needed to decide whether I want to try to paint this to match this old green or just leave it as is, but it works now. Pretty simple controls. Like I said, this is where the binding post connected at. Connect your field wire to it. This is the same type that they used on the EE-8. It actually has a piercing mechanism on it, so you could stick the field wire in there, unstrip, and screw this down. It had a little pin that poked through the insulation and made contact. At that time, the field wire was a lot heavier, had a lot thicker insulation. Actually had a cloth insulation and a actual rubber, so you just pierce it and you don't have to worry about stripping it. This is the actual operating mode switch right here. It's rather interesting. I'll tilt it a little bit. It has 3 modes. It has telephone mode, where if you plugged in and operated it, it's operating as a telephone, making phone calls, receiving phone calls. It had a radio mode that when it was hooked to the radio, that the operator could use the handset and key the handset or the microphone and talk on the radio that this was plugged into. And it had the through mode. This is the most interesting mode. That's the mode that he put it in if the EE-8 user wanted to talk over the radio. And what he did was he put it in the through mode, then he monitored the phone call. When this person was talking, he pushed this button down. It's called the anti-howl button. He pushed this button down here, did 2 things. It cut in some filters that prevented feedback, and it keyed the radio. So he'd have to listen. The person would be talking on the telephone. When a person said over or break, he would let the button up, and the audio from the radio would come in on one of this cable right here, go into this box, then go out on the field wire lines so the guy in the telephone could hear what the radio was replying. When that got done, the operator sitting here would then push the anti-howl button and hold it down while the guy on the other end made his transmission and either said break or over, letting the operator know to release the phone. So as you can see, that was a pretty, if you was a long call, you're making a lot of pushing buttons up and down. When the was in this through mode like this, all the operator could do was listen on his handset or his headset. He couldn't talk, he could just listen. If he wanted to talk on the radio, he'd have to go to radio mode. If he wanted to talk on the phone, he'd want to go to the phone mode, and that's how it worked. They were fairly rugged. Like I said, there's not a whole lot of components in here. I'll go ahead and we'll hook it up to an EE8 phone, and we'll actually make some phone calls and see how it works. Okay, I have my handset plugged in and hooked up here to the correct plugs. I have my EE8 hooked up with a piece of field wire, or a piece of wire. Well, first thing we'll do is we'll call from the EE8 to the RM-29. You can hear it ringing. I imagine that's probably the same bell that was used in the EE8. There's no way to adjust the volume on it, so there's no visual indicator if you didn't hear it, so that's how it sounded. At this point, the operator, if he wasn't in telephone mode, he would go ahead and switch it to telephone mode and answer the phone call. Test 1, 2. Hey, how's it going? Test 1, 2. Hey, I hear you loud and clear. And make the phone call. And either whatever you need to do on the phone call, or perhaps the phone caller was saying, hey, I need to talk on the radio. If this was the case, he would tell the guy on the E8, he'd tell him, hey, stand by 1, let me get set up, and give me a count to 5, and you can start. He'd go ahead and he'd flip the button right here, and then he'd go ahead and he'd press the button down here, and he'd wait. Basically what this was doing, this was keying the radio. The person on the field phone would then make his radio call, whatever he had to say, and say over or break or whatever. He'd then let the button up. At this time, the audio coming back from the radio would go into the box through this wire right here, over the field wires, and into the telephone, and the operator, or the telephone guy, could hear what was being said. When the guy stopped talking on the radio, the operator locally would push the button. He would key his handset right here in his EE8 and respond to the radio call. So like I said, going back and forth, that's what this guy's doing. He's doing a lot of button pushing here. This had a range roughly of about 2 miles, pretty similar to what the Gray 6 did. And the actual Gray 6 replaced this. And one of the reasons they replaced it was more ruggedized, and also they wanted to get away from using the 2 connections that go with the single U77 type like the H33 handset has. It's a lot more rugged than these are right here. Like I said, these were replaced by the Gray 6. I'm sure that these were probably delivered as part of a Lend-Lease to the Russians. The Russians probably had some. I'm sure after the war that some of the countries that in Europe got them as part of the early NATO stuff. But like I said, as the SCR radios went away, they used these kind of plugs and jacks, and they went to more modern stuff. These sort of became obsolete. Like I said, this handset is an H23. It's a period handset. When I got it, the cables were horrible. I mean, you could barely, every time you picked it up, they cracked more. So I ended up using the original plugs. I replaced the cable, put a Y piece on it, and a curly Q. So the plugs are original, the handset, and all the components are original. It works well. I may look at getting possibly a microphone and headset. I'm also looking at the possibility. I've done some checking on it, some testing with a multimeter, and when you're set in the through mode and you push this button, the correct pins or the correct points on the microphone plug actually ground, so it would key a radio. So my next step is to do some audio checks, push some audio through it to see if it works, and if it indeed does work, I'll do another video where I actually hook this up to a radio, and we'll use it as it was intended to make some phone calls from or radio calls using an EE8 through this box to the radio. Well, this is a remote control unit, RM-29. Thanks for watching.